Hello everyone, it's Blake from ChessPathways.com, and welcome back to the Taking on the Titans video series where I showcase and analyze some of my games against professional chess players. So here's my game against Grandmaster Mark Paragua, rated about 2600, which was played in the Southern Open in Orlando just a week ago, in July 2019. So here we go. d4, d5, he played bishop g5, and I got to play f6 here on move 2. I had prepared this, I think about 3 years ago, for an opponent who I knew sometimes played this rare bishop g5 line, and I finally got to use it here today. I'm pretty sure this is the only position in chess where it's ever okay to play f6 on move 2. Of course, this move always has lots of downsides. It exposes the king's diagonal, it takes away the best square from the kingside knight, so there's lots of good reasons not to play this move. But against bishop g5 here, it's actually not as bad as it looks. I had analyzed some lines here. For example, after bishop h4, you can simply bring this knight to h6, possibly heading to f5 very soon, when it will be easy to exchange off for this bishop. You'll also be able to play c5, and if white ever takes that pawn, you get to play e5, with the weak c5 pawn and a big center for black. In the game, after f6, Grandmaster Paragua chose the other possible move and played bishop f4, so now you can't play knight h6 right away, but now c5 is the best continuation. This pawn can be taken, but that shouldn't be a concern at all, as after d takes c5, e5 is very good for black. This pawn's going to be picked up, and black has a strong center. So, after c5, e3, knight c6, knight f3, bishop g4, and bishop e2. And already this was a critical position. It's not often I get a critical position as early as move 6, but I did a lot of thinking here. I probably thought for about 15 to 20 minutes in this position. So if you'd like, you can go ahead and pause your video here and think about how you would handle this position as black. And if you haven't seen my video yet on how to handle critical positions, I'll put it down in the description. You can go ahead and watch that video if you want more guidance for handling these critical positions. Okay, if you're back with me, so there's a lot going on behind the scenes here in this position. It's a seemingly quiet position at face value. But I really wanted to play this move e5 and really justify this move f6 and get this huge center. And I did a lot of calculation trying to justify this. So that's one idea, trying to get e5 in, and if you want to play e5, of course you have to exchange off for this knight first. It's not safe to play it right away. There's also the option just to take on d4, possibly in conjunction with queen b6. That's another idea I considered, trying to target possibly the d pawn and the b pawn. And black also doesn't have to do anything fancy here. Black can simply play e6, and there was a game played back in 2007 that went kind of along these lines. For example, c takes d4, e takes d4. Black just played e6 in this game. This was a game between a couple 2400 players back in 2007, and it shows that you don't have to really rush to justify f6 with like a quick e5. In this game, black simply developed their pieces. I'll just show part of this game. Castle, bring the rook to the d file, knight g6, and finally black got in e5 much later after finishing development. And black had a good position here and went on to win this game. And in fact, that's what Grandmaster Paragua recommended I do after the game when we talked about this position. He thought the line I took was too ambitious here for black. But let's look at what happened in the game. So, I tried to get e5 in. I exchanged off that knight and played e5. Now, I calculated this for a long time before playing this line because I was afraid of some tactics here, and I wonder if you were able to calculate some of what was going on behind the scenes in this critical position. So I thought if I get to play this move without there being any tactics, I was pretty excited about that possibility. It really justifies my f6 in the opening, I have a huge center, and I thought I would have a pretty nice position. But what scared me was this piece sacrifice opportunity that I saw that white had. I was afraid that white would take, I would take back, and now they would sacrifice this bishop by just taking on d5 like this, winning one of my strong central pawns and tearing apart my huge center. So now, of course, I have to accept the sacrifice and win a piece, otherwise I just don't have any compensation for my center getting torn apart and being down a pawn. But I saw that after I take, they can take on c6, and you'll see the point of why they do this. I take back, and now queen h5, with the idea that if I block this check, they're going to come to e5 and fork my king and rook, now that this knight's not there anymore. So I kept calculating, g6, queen e5, fork. So I can play queen e7 here, because if they win that rook, I want to at least get this queen on a good active file. Queen takes h8, and now knight f6, and I was hoping that their queen would be trapped here in the corner. So all the way back here on move 6, when I was trying to evaluate what happens if I take this knight and really build this huge center with e5, I was trying to calculate out this line, visualize that position on move 13 in my head, and really make sure that queen is trapped in the corner. Because if the queen can escape being trapped there, white's just up a lot of material after they fork my king and rook. But if I succeed in trapping that queen, this line doesn't work for white. So I was really trying to evaluate, for example, I was seeing possibilities like g4 in my head here, trying to dislodge this knight so the queen would be free. And keep in mind, this position was a little fuzzy in my head. This was like 8 moves ahead I was trying to calculate, so I couldn't quite see everything. But I saw some possibilities here for white. Like if I take en passant, I saw they would take with the h-pawn, and now their rook's active, and I wasn't sure, if I could really trap this queen. I think the line I ended up calculating here was that I castle, they played g5, and then I saw that I could play bishop g7, but now I was worried, can they give the queen up, and do they have enough for the queen here? Some position like this. This turns out to be really good, of course, for black, now that I see it on the board in front of me instead of some position 10 moves deep in my head. Going back here, actually there's even a simpler move after g4, probably just taking on e3 gives black a very strong attack. And if g4 doesn't work for white after this position after knight f6, black is just 2 moves away from simply getting castled and moving this bishop somewhere like h6, and the queen really is trapped here. There's not much white can do about this. I saw that like simple development moves didn't really do much for white. For example, knight c3, castle long, and there's just no real way to stop my threat of trapping this queen with bishop g7 or bishop h6 next turn. So going back to this position here, with bishop e2, where I took on f3 and played e5, I spent a long time here really convincing myself that this piece sacrifice doesn't work for white. I was pretty sure it didn't work, because if they do that whole thing and they win the rook in the corner, I was pretty sure the queen's getting trapped, but it's just such a long line to calculate, and I know from experience how easy it is to miss stuff when you're calculating that deep. So I went over it and over it over and over again, making sure I wasn't missing anything. And finally, I decided to play bishop takes f3, and e5. He took, and he kind of surprised me here. I thought he would try to evaluate this piece sacrifice himself. Maybe he was doing it while I was thinking, making sure it doesn't work, but he very quickly just played bishop g3 and did not go for this piece sacrifice with bishop takes d5, which does not work, as I proved to myself. So after bishop g3, I was kind of happy at first. I thought, okay, the tactic doesn't work, there's no piece sacrifice. I play knight f6 now, and I just have this huge center. White does have the 2 bishops, but I thought that my center might count for more here. And I was kind of happy to get, an unbalanced position where I thought I had good chances here out of the opening against a grandmaster, with the black pieces, no less. But it turns out it's not really as good as it looks. After knight c3, my center's coming under heavy fire here. I really am missing this light-squared bishop, as he pointed out to me after the game. Not having the light-squared bishop here makes it really hard to maintain this huge center. I pretty much have to push a pawn, and pushing the d-pawn is going to open up a lot of holes here, and white has the light bishop and I don't. I didn't like it. So e4, bishop e2, and despite the space advantage, this position is still kind of pleasant for white. I was afraid that he would play f3 at some point, maybe after castling, maybe before, and if I take, then this bishop is here and there's tons of pressure against my center. It's pretty hard to defend. So probably what I should do here is just play queen d7 and not do anything drastic. And after, for example, f3, it is kind of hard to find an answer here that defends everything for black. The computer came up with this line. I don't know how easy this would be to find in a game, though. To play bishop d6, and it looks like white's winning a pawn here, but the computer wants to sacrifice a pawn and play d4 here, and black still has some decent chances here with some more space. Of course, we can't take on e4, that's the point, because of this pin on our queen. But in any case, white retains a pleasant position despite black's space advantage. In the game, though, after bishop e2, I looked at some of these calmer alternatives like queen d7, but I decided to really go for it right now and play d4. I tried to calculate this a little bit, I couldn't see a clear refutation to it, and I thought I really want to make use of my space and really try to, expand and kick white around before white finishes development and before white can strike back at my center. Which is often a good mentality in these kind of positions. It almost reminded me of some lines in the Aliakin defense, after e4 knight f6, when white plays like the 4 pawns attack and gets this gigantic center and really goes all in, pushing both the e-pawn and the d-pawn. And I know there's some, razor sharp line where it looks like the white center is about to fall apart at any moment, but meanwhile it's kind of discoordinating all the black pieces. And I thought this was kind of a similar situation with reversed colors almost. Unfortunately here, though, white is able to make my center fall apart, and I can't make any use of some of these tactical possibilities. So d4 was the wrong way to go. And I missed this line, knight b5. So I saw knight b5, threatening knight c7, but I thought simply rook c8 kind of defended everything, and I thought I was ready to kick the knight away whenever I wanted to. And if I had just one more move here, I think I would be kind of on the path to consolidating this huge space advantage. But unfortunately, I missed bishop g4. This is the kind of move I guess I was just blind to. I thought, when you have a knight on f6, you don't even look for a move like that sometimes, I guess. But it turns out to be very strong here. And in fact, white's simply winning. So if I take that bishop, then the queen takes, and I'm still in trouble. The e-pawn's under attack. There's still this problem on the c7 square, and black actually can't deal with all these threats. So that's the unfortunate detail I missed, and of course if I don't take there, I still have a problem. White's threatening to win the exchange on c8, and if I move the rook away, then knight c7 is a big problem. So what does black do? There's not really a good option here for black. White's simply just about winning. In the game, I tried to sacrifice an exchange. I played queen a5 check, c3, and I take a knight, they take my rook, and I get to take on b2. So for the time being, I have a pawn for the exchange, but the problem of my development here and my uncastled king is really kind of the biggest feature of this position. I do get this nice passed pawn on d3, but it's not worth anything compared to what white's getting here, taking on b7. And white found a really nice tactic to finish the game. I don't think they even have to find this. They're probably winning in just about any case here. But bishop d7, did not see that coming, giving me a piece just in exchange for getting this queen into the attack. And after queen d5, it doesn't even come with check, but there's no way for black to defend everything here. It really highlights the fact that the black king is so weak and out in the open, and I of course have no counterplay against the safe and sound white king there on g1. So I try to just give the piece back and escape, but of course it's pretty much hopeless, and after queen d5, I resign because white's winning this knight here. So this game brings to mind the lesson that tactics are the servant of strategy. You might have heard that chess quote before. And it really makes sense here going back to move 6 here when I thought for so long about playing bishop takes f3 and e5, and I spent a long time making sure it was possible. Tactics tell you what are possible. I calculated for a long time making sure I wasn't falling for some piece sacrifice where white simply is, winning the rook here in the corner and winning, and I calculated out that it doesn't work, that, black is winning in that line. So tactically, this operation is possible. It's safe, bishop takes f3 and e5, but positionally, strategically, it's not correct. It turned out to be a misjudgment on my part. It was not correct to give away the bishop pair and expand so early before finishing development, as the rest of the game proved. Even though I succeeded in getting this huge center, even though tactically I was 100% correct that this worked, there was no possibility here to win the rook in the corner, it's still not correct. So just remember that, how tactics and strategy kind of go hand in hand. Tactically, you have to make sure your moves are safe, but just because your operation is safe doesn't mean it's necessarily the best strategic plan. I would have been much better suited just proceeding much more calmly like this game from 2007, simply playing e6, not being in a rush to get this e5 move in, and first finishing my development. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope you learned something today. I'll make sure to put that video down in the description about how to calculate in critical positions. And if you haven't signed up yet on chesspathways.com, please go to chesspathways.com right now and sign up. It only takes a few seconds. You'll get access to exclusive content and contests, and I'll make sure you never miss any new material. So thank you again, and I will see you again soon.